On this edition of The Best Times, we explore the rise in senior entrepreneurs. You'll meet one of the world's largest collectors of maps and globes. And we'll give you the facts about breast cancer. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. It's often been said that small businesses are the foundation of the American economy. You might be surprised to learn that more than half of small business owners in the United States are age 50 or older. For some people, it's a chance to be their own boss for the first time in their lives. For others, it may be their only option when they're forced out of their career. But what does it take to start a business after age 50? And what are the keys to success? Let's find out by asking some senior entrepreneurs. "67-year-old Charles Barnes is going to work today at the company he owns, Action Chemical. And he wouldn't have it any other way.
I don't know what retirement is. Next year, my wife and I will have been married 50 years. I love her, but I just don't want to stay at home and watch soap operas. You know, that's just not what I want to do. And I'm a golfer, and I can't play golf, every day. So this is fun for me.
Charles Barnes has actually retired twice. The first time was at age 52 from a career as a sales executive at Levi Strauss. Then he retired a second time as part owner of a wholesale business. At age 62, he bought Action Chemical, a company that sells janitorial supplies to corporate clients. Although going from selling jeans to selling toilet paper seems like quite a stretch, Charles knew that his years of experience would be the foundation of his success.
You've got to have good training to move into this. You got to have organization, you've got to have drive, and all those things I had in the corporate world, and I used them for someone else. And now that I'm here, I use them for my company.
Charles Barnes is a prime example of one of the latest trends in business.
The millennial generation has this perception that they're the millennial or they're the entrepreneurial generation, but if you look at the statistics published by the Kauffman Foundation, there are more startups and new entrepreneurs between the ages of 50 and 65 in the last several years than in the millennial generation.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that there are 14.4 million people in the U.S. that are self-employed. In a 2013 survey, 30% of all self-employed workers were 55 or older, followed closely by the 45 to 54 age bracket. Mike Hoffmeyer sees this trend continuing, driven by economic conditions.
I think the economic environment has a lot to do with it. You got people trying to re-enter the workforce and struggling to do that, but then at that age, they have something that younger entrepreneurs don't in terms of experience, one, but also financial security. So they're more equipped to venture out and start and be able to take a little more risk.
Carmen Brown is working the phones at her staffing agency, Neymark Professional Services. She knows the risk of starting your own business.
This is a man's world. And a lot of times we're not treated favorably as a male. And sometimes we have to work extra hard to get in those doors. It's a struggle sometimes, and you just have to persevere. Continue to do it. You have to knock on doors. Sometimes doors are slammed in your face, but you just don't give up.
Like Charles Barnes, Carmen Brown used her 20 years of experience managing the customer service department at IBM to start her own staffing company. It was her disillusionment with corporate America that pushed her to become her own boss.
I think corporate America was changing. Things were happening. There were decisions being made. I was in the time where companies were laying off. Companies weren't the same. The benefits were changing. I didn't have that security. I said, in order for me to have a security, it needs to be me. And that is exactly what I did. I stepped out, as they say, on faith.
At age 53, she found that security in the business plan she wrote for her company.
I had something to follow. All I did was put my ideas on paper. I read about business plans, how you can do it, and I wanted to be a secure business. No matter how long I would decide to stay in this business, I wanted it to be secure.
As Mike Hoffmeyer points out, the lack of a good business plan is one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs can make.
Well, the biggest mistake is to build it and they'll come approach. You know, making assumptions about your market and not having any proof that those assumptions are true. That's a very quick way to waste a lot of time and money and escalate your chances for failure.
Michael Taylor is showing his clients some design options for the interior remodeling of her home. His 6-year-old design firm was born out of necessity because his successful career in data acquisition at a Fortune 500 company came to an abrupt end when he was laid off.
As soon as I walked into the door, my boss grabbed me and took me to a room with personnel, and I was escorted off the property. So in that short period, you know, you realize your whole life is about to change, and it was the day before my birthday and my 49th birthday, and you just roll with the punches. And I was probably sad for about an hour, but realized that I kind of had something else that I really wanted to do.
That something else was interior design. Michael had been doing freelance design work on the side for over a decade, so he decided to put his creative talents to work full-time.
So I've been doing it full-time for 6 years. Don't make near the money that I made before, but that's not the most important thing in life. I mean, yeah, you have to have money to pay your bills and that kind of thing, but it's not the most important thing in life for me, you know, so I'm sure it's more important for others. But for me, it was more important after working in a company for 25 years that, you know, I wanted to do something that would make me happy.
Michael has combined his experience and his existing client base with his passion for design to grow his own business. As Mike Hoffmeyer points out, passion is one of the key characteristics of entrepreneurs.
You've got to be deeply passionate about what it is that you're doing, because, I mean, entrepreneurship is a tough road. It is not a piece of cake. It's very often described as a roller coaster, where, you know, one week you're on an emotional high and the next week the entire world's falling apart, and that repeats over and over for the first couple of years you're in business. So that passion and that drive is what gets you through those low points.
All three of these over 50 business owners have combined the key elements that senior entrepreneurs need to succeed. They've built a business on their experience, they've made a business plan, and they have a passion for their work. Many people dream of being their own boss, but what is it really like when you're over 50?
Absolutely wonderful. It's like, I know what I want to do. I really don't have to report to anyone but myself. My partner and I work very well together, and I'm helping my employees and I'm helping myself.
There's no comparison with what I did before and what I do now. Even though I could work 80 hours a week now, it's what I want to do and, you know, what I'm passionate about.
62 years old, and look, I just signed a 5-year contract for a new facility. Am I nuts?
If you're thinking about starting a business, here are a few questions to ask yourself. In your experience, which of your previous jobs made you happiest and why? What one thing do you do better than most people in your profession? And what personality traits have helped you succeed in your career? Take a look at your skills. What are your professional skills? What non-professional skills do you have? And what are you good at? And lastly, what are your passions? What activities do you enjoy the most? What activity would you try if you knew you couldn't fail? And what do you enjoy teaching others?
You know, there's this concept of head plus heart equals hustle. There's an organization called Echoing Green that proposes this as the key to happiness, you know, professional happiness. And that's taking, you know, the assets, the knowledge, everything you have in your head, and, you know, evaluating what's in your heart, what you're passionate about, what interests you, and all of that. And where those overlap, that's where you should go professionally. And it's no different for a startup.
My thing is I have fun doing what I'm doing. And if there is no fun along with working, I don't think you should go into the business.
If you're ready to be your own boss, you can find small business startup information on the website of the U.S. Small Business Administration or at your local Chamber of Commerce. Becoming a senior entrepreneur or finding a second career isn't always easy, but sometimes your hobby can become a business. That's exactly what happened with Murray Hudson. What began as a childhood fascination with maps has transformed him into one of the premier collectors and dealers of antique maps and globes in the world. Murray Hudson is the Map Man. You can find Halls, Tennessee on the map just south of Dyersburg. It's a small town of about 2,500 people. But that man walking down the sidewalk is known worldwide. Murray Hudson is the Map Man and runs a storefront and 2 other buildings filled with antique maps and globes. His fascination with maps began when he was 4 or 5 years old.
I've always loved the idea of travel and finding out things about something other than the little place where I was. And yeah, my father had been in England and Germany and so on during the war, and so his stories really, I really connected with them. As I was growing up and we were traveling, I always kept the highway maps. I was the person supposedly directing where we're going, but it was usually pretty simple.
So you could sort of travel vicariously through all of these maps?
Yes, definitely.
Murray has done a lot of traveling in his life, and he's had a lot of careers. He was a college professor in Alabama, spent a year studying at Oxford in England. He's been a stockbroker in Arizona, started a manufacturing business before returning to Tennessee to become a farmer. All the while he was collecting maps, with no intention of turning his hobby into a business. Then, one day, he checked on the market value of a rare map of Texas.
But I got a catalog from someone in Texas, and the Texas map that I had increased, I don't know, like maybe 50 times what I paid for it. And I said, this sure beats the stock market.
That realization of the value of his rare maps and globes led Murray to let his sons take over the farm while he opened his shop in downtown Halls. Today, his inventory spans 3 buildings with nearly 20,000 maps, 7,000 books, mostly atlases, and over 750 globes.
I think as far as what we have online, I don't know of anybody that has more anywhere.
Murray has built an international business from tiny Halls, Tennessee, through his personal connection with collectors worldwide and the World Wide Web. The internet has turned Murray's business into a global empire.
A huge portion of it is. I get orders from dealers, museums, and so. Library of Congress is one of my biggest customers.
Like any collector, Murray has a few favorites.
One of the first maps that I bought was a little map of, and I have it framed at home, of Ireland. What I noticed, because I like to look at the maps and I love place names, and up in the northern part of Ireland, there was what looked like a cave in a mountain. It was called Purgatorio. I said, oh, so that's where the troubles are. One of my favorite and one of the best looking and the biggest map that I currently have. This is during the Revolutionary War. It's 1777. It is the French version, and of course the French were fighting on our side, of a British wall map. But that was the treaty map, and that was our border, first border. The map behind you over there has California as an island. Before we dammed up the Colorado River, it had massive floods every season. And if you came up the Sea of Cortez and you saw what was really the Colorado River overflowing, you think, well, that's just a continuation of it. I have an old map behind you over here has a proposed state of Shoshone instead of Idaho. The same map has Corona for Colorado. And it is a major production. That was actually suggested names for state. There was a state of Lincoln proposed, I think, for North Dakota. This pair of globes are from 1776. I think I have a globe older than that, but the older ones sell pretty readily and so on. And this is the only matched pair of globes that are dated that I've ever run in stands, carved stands. I have the first state map of Tennessee, and it was Tennessee government the year before, and they erased government, and in that large space they put state. And so it looks a little bit out of proportion in the title, but it's a very handsome map done by Daniel Smith. And I did a talk earlier this year at the State Library about the borders of Tennessee and how they came to be where they are, and they're not really exactly where they're supposed to be. And 12 miles, I think it's 18 miles too far north when it gets to the Tennessee River. And that was because of compass variation caused by the fact there was an awful lot of iron ore near the surface. They mined iron ore.
In case you're wondering about the dollar value of Murray's collectibles, here's a first edition of the first atlas printed in America. In 1795, it had a sale price of $5, or about $100 in today's money. But if you'd like to buy this rare copy, Murray will sell it to you for $37,500. If your budget is a tad lower, there are plenty of maps, globes, and books in stock at much more reasonable prices. But Murray doesn't collect just for the money. As with any true collector, it's all about the next big find.
The fun of the hunt is still there. You know, I like to travel, and I like to seek out things, and it doesn't always end up, you know, being anything great, but just doing it is worth the effort.
Before we left Murray's shop, I had to ask him if he had any treasure maps. Apparently, a lot of people ask him that question, and he has a pirate's response.
Now look, if it were you, and you had a treasure map, and somebody wanted to buy it, would you not have made a copy, and as soon as you handed it to them, go out and rent a backhoe and beat them to it? The map is the treasure.
Each year, there are nearly 250,000 new cases of breast cancer diagnosed. In fact, it's the second most common cancer in women. But in recent years, controversy has surrounded the frequency and effectiveness of mammograms. If breast cancer is identified early, the 5-year survival rate is nearly 90%. Even so, it's estimated that in 2016, over 40,000 women will die of this disease. Let's get some facts about breast cancer and you. What is breast cancer?
So breast cancer is a malignancy. To make that more simple, it's normal cells who are now normal breast cancer cells who are now no longer under the control of the body. So they grow uncontrollably.
How common is it?
It is the most common cancer in women, and one of the most common cancers in the United States. About 250,000 new diagnoses of breast cancer every year.
What are the risk factors?
We know of some risk factors. One, alcohol, and depends on how much. The studies tend to show that greater than 2 drinks per night. Smoking is a risk factor. The length of estrogen exposure. So for example, a woman who's never been pregnant, folks who take estrogen replacement therapy, those who are on, believe it or not, hormonal contraceptives, those appear to be a risk factor also.
Is age a factor?
Age does play a role because cancer really is a disease of the elderly. The average breast cancer patient is about 60.
What are the signs and symptoms?
If you feel anything that's different in your breast than you're accustomed to, you should bring that to the attention of a physician. Nipple discharge, that's bloody, for example, is a concern. Changes to the skin, redness, or the skin appears more thick. You have masses under your arm that wasn't there before. Those are sort of signs that you need to bring those to the attention of a physician. You should do your regular screening mammograms, for example, and those can pick up early signs of breast cancer that we can act upon. Remember, breast cancer is highly curable cancer, but it's curable when we detect it early.
How often should women get mammograms?
The recent United States Preventative Task Force, and I think the American Cancer Association, just made a recommendation about when you should get tested. Essentially between 50 and 70, I think, for every year. Every other year between 40 and 50. Otherwise, it's a decision with your physician and based on your risk.
What treatment is available?
In general, there are 3 options for therapy. One, for the estrogen positive, is a pill. For HER2 positive breast cancer, that is a protein that allows the cell to grow rapidly and again evade the control. We do have a blocker. And then chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is sometimes combined with the other 2 that I mentioned, or chemotherapy by itself, especially in a triple negative breast cancer patients. Every breast cancer patient that's curable should have surgery, and surgery should involve the tumor in the breast and sampling lymph nodes under the arm. And radiation occurs in most patients. But radiation is another option for therapy, and it would depend on your surgical approach and extent of disease.
What does the future hold?
The future, I think, is bright. With breast cancer, we're one of the disease type that has made the most advances in research. And I'm very optimistic that we will improve upon every year. Every 5 years, the way I treat breast cancer may be very different 5 years from now than the way we do it now.
For more information about breast cancer, go to the website of the American Cancer Society. Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Chris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you.